She wasn't supposed to win this. Then the sky opened, and so did history. A 21-year-old ranked outside the world's top 25 walked onto a rain-soaked court in Washington, D.C., staring down the world number 3. 2 days, 2 rain delays, and 1 impossible comeback later, tennis had a new name to remember. By the time you finish this video, you'll understand why players twice her age are calling her the future of the sport, and why what happened on that court will be replayed for years. Stick around, because the ending of this story is not what anyone in that stadium expected. Not the fans, not the commentators, and not even her opponent. Before we dive in, if you love underdog stories, comebacks nobody saw coming, and the kind of sports drama that feels like it was written by a screenwriter, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. This channel covers the moments in tennis that don't just make headlines, they make history. You will not want to miss what's coming next. Now let's get into it. A girl from Quezon City. To understand why what happened in Washington mattered so much, you have to go back to where it started. Not in a 5-star academy, not on a manicured European clay court, but on a public basketball court in Quezon City, Philippines. Alexandra Eala grew up in a country with almost no tennis infrastructure to speak of. The Philippines had never produced a WTA Tour singles champion. Not one. In a nation obsessed with basketball and boxing, tennis was a niche sport, played by a handful of families who could afford it. Eala was one of the lucky ones, but luck alone doesn't take you to the doorstep of a Grand Slam level final. Discipline does. Obsession does. Losing over and over as a teenager on the junior circuit and refusing to quit does. By 2026, Eala had built a reputation as a dangerous, unpredictable talent. A left-handed server with a game that could trouble anyone on a good day, but who hadn't yet broken through at the very top level. She arrived in Washington for the Mubadala DC Open ranked world number 28. Respectable, promising, but not by any measure a favorite. Nobody could have predicted what was about to happen. The gauntlet. The Mubadala DC Open is a WTA 500 event, one tier below the 4 majors, but still one of the most competitive stops on the calendar, packed with ranked contenders trying to build momentum before the US Open. And this year, the draw was loaded. Eala's first big test came against Zhang Qinwen, a Grand Slam-level talent and Olympic gold medalist. Eala won. Next up, Leylah Fernandez, the defending champion at this very tournament, a player who knew exactly how to grind out 3-set battles. Eala won again. Then came Alina Svitolina, a former world number 3 and one of the most experienced big match competitors on tour. Eala beat her too. And then, in a result that sent shockwaves through the tennis world, Eala defeated Naomi Osaka, a 4-time Grand Slam champion, a former world number 1, one of the most recognizable athletes on the planet. For wins, for increasingly difficult opponents. By the time Eala walked out for the final, she had already done something no one expected. She had beaten her way through a murderer's row of champions just to get there. Waiting for her on the other side of the net was Jessica Pegula, the world number 3, and a player who had a very personal connection to this tournament. Washington was the site of Pegula's first ever WTA singles title, all the way back in 2019. She had returned to Washington chasing something meaningful. A second title on the court where her career first took off, and her 12th career trophy overall. She'd also fought through a tense semifinal to get to the final, grinding out a 3-set win to punch her ticket. 2 very different stories. 1 trophy, and a sky that was about to make things a lot more complicated. The sky's open. The final was scheduled for a clean, simple noon start. Nothing about a WTA 500 final in the middle of the US summer suggested chaos was coming. Then the clouds rolled in. Thunderstorms swept through the Washington area before the match had even started, delaying the opening for hours. When the players finally stepped onto stadium court, the air was thick with humidity, the kind that makes every point feel twice as long and twice as exhausting. Pegula, calm and composed, made the stronger start. She broke Eala's serve twice, showed exactly why she's one of the most consistent players on the tour, and closed out the first set 6-4. If you were watching, this looked like exactly what the rankings predicted. The higher-seeded, more experienced player doing what higher-seeded, more experienced players do. But Eala didn't fold. In the second set, she found her footing. She held her opening service games with real conviction, and before long she had pulled ahead 2-1. It wasn't dominant, but it was a signal. She wasn't rattled. She wasn't intimidated by the moment. And then, right as the momentum seemed to be tilting back in her favor, the sky opened again. Rain and lightning rolled in over Rock Creek Park, and officials had no choice but to pull the players off the court. Fans who had shown up to watch history huddled under whatever cover they could find. Tournament staff tried to dry the court. It didn't matter. The storms kept coming, in waves, for hours. By the time officials finally made the call, night had fallen and there was no realistic way to finish the match. The final would not be completed on Sunday. It would have to wait. For Eala, the player who had just started to find her rhythm, the delay could not have come at a worse moment. A night of waiting. If you have ever had a big moment interrupted right when you were finding your rhythm, you already understand what Eala was facing. Momentum in tennis is fragile, can evaporate overnight. Muscles cool down, nerves creep back in, and an entire night stretches out in front of you with nothing to do but wonder whether the version of yourself that showed up in that second set will still be there in the morning. The match resumed the next day, but the weather in Washington still wasn't finished causing problems. More delays pushed the restart further and further back. When play did resume, the players managed only a handful of games before rain forced them off the court yet again. It was a cruel stop-start rhythm that would test the patience of even the most seasoned professional, let alone a 21-year-old playing in just her second-ever tour-level final. At the moment the match was finally suspended for the night, the score stood at 6-4, 1-2 in Pegula's favor. On paper, the world number 3 was firmly in control. She had won the first set decisively and was ahead in the second. Anyone looking purely at the scoreboard would have assumed this story had a predictable ending. But tennis, real tennis, the kind played by athletes with something to prove, doesn't always follow the scoreboard. The restart. When the final finally resumed at midday, something had shifted. Eala came out completely transformed. Gone was the tentative player who had been playing catch-up through 2 rain delays. In her place was a competitor who looked like she belonged exactly where she was standing. She leveled the second set. Then she began to control it. Where Pegula had dictated points in the first set, it was now Eala dictating terms, using that dangerous lefty serve, taking bigger cuts on her return games, refusing to give Pegula any rhythm. She closed out the second set 6-4, squaring the match at 1 set apiece. And then, in the deciding third set, everything that had been building for 2 rain-soaked days finally broke loose, in Eala's favor. She won game after game, break after break. The player who had trailed for the better part of 2 days suddenly looked unstoppable, playing with the kind of clean, fearless tennis that makes crowds rise out of their seats. By the time the third set ended, Eala hadn't just won it. She had blanked her opponent completely, closing out the set and the match without dropping a single game. Final score: 4-6, 6-4, 6-0. A set down, 2 rain delays, a 2-day battle against the weather and the world number 3. And Alex Eala had come through all of it to win her first ever WTA Tour singles title. What it meant. Let that sink in for a second. This wasn't just a title. This was history. Alex Eala became the first player from the Philippines, in the country's entire tennis history, to win a WTA Tour singles title. Not a junior title, not an exhibition, a full WTA Tour trophy at a WTA 500 event against the world's third-ranked player. She arrived in Washington ranked world number 28. She left as a champion projected to crack the world's top 20 for the first time in her career. A jump that instantly reshapes her seeding heading into the US Open. Along the way, she didn't just beat Jessica Pegula. She beat an Olympic gold medalist, a defending champion, a former world number 3, and a 4-time Grand Slam winner. All in the same week, all before the rain even got involved. Speaking after the match, Eala talked about feeling overwhelming support from home, saying the love from her family and friends had carried her through the toughest moments of the final. It was the kind of raw, emotional reaction you only get from an athlete who genuinely didn't know, until the very last point, whether this dream was actually going to come true. For Pegula, it was a heartbreaking near miss. She had been the better player for most of 2 days. She had a set and a break of momentum in hand. And in the space of about 100 minutes on the restart, all of it slipped away against a 21-year-old who simply refused to blink. Why this story matters. Here's the thing about moments like this: they don't happen because of one great set or one lucky bounce or one bad day for the favorite. They happen because someone spent years building toward exactly this. Eala's run through Washington wasn't a fluke. She didn't back into this title. She beat 4 accomplished, dangerous opponents to even reach the final, and then she came back from a set down against the world number 3, through 2 separate rain delays that could easily have knocked the wind out of a less determined competitor. That's what makes this different from your average tournament upset. This is the story of someone whose whole career had been building toward a breakthrough, finally getting it on the biggest stage she'd faced yet, in the worst possible conditions, and delivering anyway. If you're new here, this is exactly the kind of story we love covering. The moments where the scoreboard says one thing, the odds say another, and the athlete decides neither of those things gets the final word. If that's your kind of tennis content, subscribe now, because we're going to be tracking exactly what Eala does next, starting with her official US Open seeding, and whether she can carry the same fearless energy into a Grand Slam. What comes next? With this win, Eala heads into the US Open as a genuinely dangerous floater in the draw. No longer an unseeded surprise, but a rising top 20 player who has just proven she can beat elite competition under maximum pressure. Opponents who might have overlooked her a month ago will now be studying every point of this Washington final, trying to figure out how to stop that lefty serve and that relentless third-set surge. For Filipino tennis fans, and there were plenty of them who traveled to watch this final in person, this is a genuinely historic moment. A nation with almost no tradition at the top level of tennis now has a bona fide WTA Tour champion, still only 21 years old, with what looks like a long career ahead of her. And for Jessica Pegula, this is a result she'll want to respond to. A player of her caliber doesn't stay down for long, and you can expect her to be motivated heading into the hardcourt swing toward New York. 2 players, 1 trophy, a storm that tried to get in the way and only ended up making the story better. This is why we watch sports. Not for the predictable outcomes, for the ones where a 21-year-old from Quezon City walks into a downpour, gets knocked down a set, and walks out a champion anyway.